Hello everyone, Cobra 8000 here, and today we're going to be doing a video on tank destroyers and how to play them somewhat more effectively, and also how I play them, which is stupidly aggressive and either stupidly passive. I want to start off with the jagdpanther, since it's a non-turreted tank destroyer, and then I'm going to do the charioteer. It's a turreted tank destroyer, and explain the differences of what you can do with each. Now, the jagdpanther is an incredible tank destroyer. It has a 105mm gun and an 88. You can use both to your preference on what you prefer. Now, this has armor, so you can play it much more aggressively than you can most other tank destroyers. But we're in a tier 8 match, so everything can pin us. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the left here. Now, with a non-turreted tank destroyer, you'll most likely have less traverse, but you'll have gun traverse. And the whole point is you have to create much stronger angles, and don't sit in one place and camp. When you sit in one place and you can't shoot, and you're not doing anything for your team, that's camping. When you're in a spot where you can effectively shoot enemies and support your team, you are effectively sniping. Now, there's a lot of different things you can do. A lot of non-turreted tank destroyers have no armor. A lot of them do have armor. This one in particular has armor that'll work good against most tier 7s and tier 8. You've also got 8 degrees of gun depression and good gun elevation. Now, this Tiger P is going to roll back, and we're going to start putting pressure on him. And the Scorpion is going to help us. Now, the Pagetto jumps down and kills the ISU. And we're going to put a round into him in a minute. Now, obviously, with these non-turreted tank destroyers, you'll also have a much larger gun and much longer reloads, which means you have to play them differently. Now, we're playing in the back here, and effectively targeting and destroying, doing damage. Now, the other thing you have to learn is if you can't do any damage, you need to move to another spot. If you can't do anything for your team where you are, then you have to move. And with this, with tank destroyers, you have a lot more time to think about your options. Now, we've got Tiger 2 here. I can pin him on his turret and at times on his front plate. Now we're going to try HEM here, and I don't get him. Now, the big thing you have to learn is that you cannot stay in one spot. Now, in the next match, I'm going to show that quite well. Now, we win this one. We get about 2,000 damage. Now let's take a look at a much more aggressive game in the jagdpanther. Now I want to keep reminding you of this. If you sit at the back and you don't do anything, you're a camper and you're useless to the team. You have to get into the thick of it, which can mean many things for a tank destroyer. Being in a position to shoot, being up with your mediums, and since a lot of these tank destroyers go as fast as their mediums and have the gun depression to do it, going to the middle on like a map like Canyon, where there's the hill, allows you to do some pretty nice things. Now, you've got 8 degrees of gun depression for this tank. And what you have to do is you have to create angles for you to effectively snipe. So unlike the ISU, which can't do what I'm doing because it doesn't have the gun depression. Now I'm going to try to put one in the T-28, but I get spotted and pull off. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use our speed and flank around. Now, by this point, we haven't done any damage, but as you can see, I'm not staying in one spot. I know that if I stay up there now, I've been spotted, I can't get the gun down far enough, I have to move. Now, the only problem with this gun is that you don't have enough armor piercing, or penetration, to penetrate a lot of tanks frontally. So that's the other thing you've got to learn with some of these tanks, is that you don't have enough penetration to hit tanks in certain places. So you got to look for the cheeks. And now we're going to pop one into the ISU. And the P-43 starts trying to put us in there. We get our first balance. Now, as you can see, against tier 7s and lower tier tanks, you've got effective armor. So he's going to come down, and we're going to start putting it into him. Now again, I don't have a turret, he does, but I can still angle, so that's why I'm moving around like that. Now we get another bounce. We took one more round, so he can't afford to take anything else. And the P-43 is going to get taken out. Now we're going to push up in here and try and deal with the SP-1C and the AMX-100. Now, this gun is very, very troll at times. It'll either work the greatest and hit everything, or it won't. That's a big thing you've got to learn with your tank destroyers, is to know when to camp, because it's technically still what it is, but you're still helping your team. You've got to learn when to stay in place and shoot, and when to effectively push out and get shots. We can't all be 183s. So we're going to push the 100, and we're going to deal with him. And this is where the gun depression really does help, because we get the gun up just enough to hit him. Now I want to move over to the charioteer, which is turreted. Now, you can do a lot more with turreted tank destroyers. You can play them like mediums or heavies, like the T-28. Well, the charioteer's got no armor. And this is a lot of the tank destroyers that you'll have. No armor, they're fast, or they've got mineral armor and they're slow, and you've got to find spots. Now, with this tank, you can follow around your mediums. You've got Hesh, which is just really good at high explosive. So we're going to push over to A and get shots there. And another thing, don't put your tank destroyers out in the open. You're not a heavy tank. T-28's an exception. You've really got to remember that if you know your tanks, like most of the ISUs don't have gun depression and they have no armor, so they're much easier to focus and deal with. Those, you have to find a spot where you most likely can't be spotted, and you've got to remember that. Because once you get spotted in a tank destroyer that has high damage and no armor, you will effectively waste all that damage potential. But if you can find a spot, sit there, and assist your team. I want to remind you of this. Don't find a spot and just sit there the entire game. If you haven't fired at anything for a while, and you're loaded, and you're not hitting something, you're not helping your team. We're going to push up and we're going to start hitting this conqueror. As you can see, I'm out of his spotting range and I have a turret. So what I can do is I can go back. This is the big thing that you can do, is creating great angles with your tank destroyers so that you can be in position to go back behind cover. Even with non-turreted tank destroyers, you've got to be able to hide yourself if you think you're going to get spotted. Now we put a blind one in there. Don't get the low. And the Conqueror is going to keep pushing his luck. And we're going to take him out. Another thing with tank destroyers is that you have a lot more time than a lot of other tanks. So you do need to try and hit targets when you can. So we take out the Conqueror. He's stock, so I feel a little bad for him. And we try to get one into him, but we miss. And again, I'm always looking to where I can move, to where I can be effective. And if you're effective, you are the most dangerous tank. If you're not effective, and it's not because you can't hit anything or your gun's just not working, and it's because you're sitting somewhere and you're not doing any damage, and that's your problem. You have to be moving. Ferdinand there, he's got armor. He can do things. He can angle. He can push out and be much more aggressive than most other tank destroyers. And now, you see one problem with non-turreted tank destroyers. There are problems with that. Not being able to traverse. And now we take out this cavalry. And I want to say this for the last time. You have to be on the move. You have to understand what your tank destroyer can do. If it's non-turreted, you probably want to stay at the back of the map a little bit more. But you have to be at the back of the map where you can hit things. You have to be. If you're doing damage, you're helping your team. Alright, well that's it for the video. Also, what I'd like to say is like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for 20 subscribers. I know it's not much, but it's much to me. Thank you for everyone's support. If you want to support me more, there's Patreon in the link below, and special rewards. And if you have any ideas for Patreon, leave them in the description below. Goodbye, everyone. Have a nice